Hey! Are you that weird one in your friends group that loves to watch true crime documentaries? Have you ever wanted to learn more about the lesser-known crimes? And are you fascinated with ghost stories? I'm Hannah, the creator, editor, and host of Murder Bucket, a podcast that talks about, get this, murders, paranormal activity, abductions, kidnappings, and weird stuff. Join me every Tuesday wherever you listen to podcasts to get the inside scoop on some of the most interesting topics in the true crime world. I am also very active on social media. You can find me on Instagram at MurdBucket, Facebook at BucketMurd, and Twitter at The Murder Bucket.
This episode is brought to you by the Slash and Cast Podcast Network. Learn more at slashandcast.net.
I'm your host, Paige, and you're listening to Reverie True Crime. Today, in part 6 of this series, you'll get to listen to the full meeting between Chief of Police Zachary Flores, Assistant Chief Jason Jeffcoat, Kimberly and Justin. Kimberly and Justin address their concerns and try their best to get answers to their burning questions. We are leading up to why the recreation of the crime scene was done by the Sherman Police Department in 2018, 3 years after Amanda's passing. This meeting is extremely interesting, and I'd love to know your thoughts on what Chief Flores and Assistant Chief Jeffcoat have to say in response to their concerns. We will meet back here on Monday for part 7. We are so close to the end of this series. Stay tuned to find out how this story ends. For now, until we can make a difference and enforce change. Let's start the meeting.
Hello. Kimberly and Justin.
There you go.
Hi. Good to see
How you
you.
doing? How you doing?
Good, Jason. Nice to meet you. Jason Jeffcoat. Nice to meet
Jason is the new deputy chief, assistant chief over criminal investigations. So he wasn't the chief at the time of this.
Sure.
So I'm looking over this. I mean, I understand all your concerns, but where we land is that there's nothing overwhelming that can hammer it down. Okay, that it's a homicide. Okay. The 5 foot of cord. We were talking about that. And Detective Jones' report documents the 5 foot is the cutoff part, and the rest was wrapped around it. So it wasn't that 5 feet was tied and then tied. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So you're saying the total length is 5 foot?
Was longer.
It's longer than 5 foot.
Yeah, but only a couple of inches. I mean,
Well, I didn't see that. I'm just saying that documented it's.
I guess people you could figure it out by the picture. I mean, come on, friend, you know.
I mean that's not that long,
Right.
and it cuts off right here. So I mean, it's just a couple of inches.
Right, but even still, I mean, you untie that.
That's what
It's.
5 foot and 3-4 inches. I mean, I'm sorry.
I think that's more than that. However,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
what it boils down to for us is I understand your concerns. We have to rely on the medical examiner's office. There's no other avenue for us to turn other than an ME's office for.
Do you, I understand that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you gotta go with the
Yeah.
ME. Do you also understand that the ME, do you believe that the ME was or was not given proper information?
Proper information or as much information as
any
possible.
information.
Any information?
Besides, she was received as a female possible suicide by hanging. That's all her body went to the ME's office with.
I mean, that's it.
And he lied to us and told us, I gave her full report. And he put that in his report, and that's not true. Because we talked to her on Friday after the autopsy, and she said she didn't know how I had the ligature to go on. She did not have any circumstances around it. She didn't have
I was
any
the first one that she
pictures.
spoke to after the information, before.
She didn't have any of these pictures of the day it happened. She was healed when she went to
This is what she told me. So I called up there and requested to speak with her. She said I had to get the judge's permission first. I called back, got the judge's permission. Then she spoke to me same day. And I asked her, what information did you have? Basically, rule out suicide. I said, did you have the ligature? No. Did you have pictures? No. Any other evidence? No.
Did you know that her life was threatened with murder that day
No.
by 3 people?
I mean, she personally told me this before she had got any information. So, I mean, what else would you expect a ruling to be?
Well,
How
so
could you-
typically any time a body goes down, they're given a small picture of it. No physical pictures.
Sure.
So even if the
And-
injuries happened 7 days before, they wouldn't have told them? I mean,
They would tell them, hey, this was sustained here. This is the circumstances surrounding it, kind of a 30,000 foot level, because we do want to keep an independent.
But does she or does she not need evidence leading up to rule out? I mean, if we have medical stuff all the time leading up to make decisions on why we do things and why we come make a decision.
Yeah, no, absolutely, we understand that.
But we don't want to give them anything that's going to make them have a bias.
Absolutely.
You understand that?
But if I told you,
you just
here's the
gave her a
lady
bias,
hanging,
though. You said
Rule out.
suicide by hanging. I mean, that's what he told her.
What other bias could you not get?
I mean, that was very biased, I think.
Well,
that was a very one-sided.
And, I
Anyway.
mean, we can't speak for Detective Jones, but oftentimes they say, what may it appear like or whatnot. Yeah, we give them that. Just if we get somebody that's shot, we're not, we're looking to them to tell us the caliber, all of these things to help us develop evidence. And so, in a situation like this, if she would have found something unusual, even if we told her suicide, what we're relying on is not necessarily for her to come back and tell us exactly, hey, this is what this is, because she could have came back and told us that it was inconclusive. She could have come back and told us, really middle of the road. I cannot tell you one way or the other. She does have that option.
Sure.
And I've received those as an investigator. It doesn't help much. But what we're looking for is for her to come back and say, okay, this is the evidence that I located, which may help us make a determination one way or the other. So I understand your concerns with her, and kind of what she told y'all as far as why she determined it to be a suicide. And you document, hey, what she says, I find information that may be contrary. Okay, and I totally I get that. However, as we investigate, what we're going to put in front of court is going to be her. So when she comes back and says this, short of a second doctor there coming back and saying, okay, no, but basically what it boils down to is she would have to argue that. She would have to argue that.
I would totally go toe-to-toe with her, but she won't meet with me. I mean, neither will her supervisor.
Well, that, I guess what I'm trying to say is we look at it all in the totality, okay? And a lot of it does hinge on the information we get back from her. I would say, as I look at it years later, right? That is a lot of what I look at, because as an investigator, it could go 1,000 different ways. And Lieutenant Dean now had followed up with her, followed up with several different things, And basically, I'm not trying to convince you that it is a suicide.
No,
I'm not trying to. Okay, and I understand your concerns. However, as we look at what would we do next, is just talking to people, the same people that we talked to. We talked to her and show her, and Lieutenant Dean did follow up with her, and she says, "Well, I'm more convinced that it's a suicide now."
Based on what? I mean, based on what? Nothing changed. I mean, this was
Well,
open.
I'm saying what she told him.
Well, I know.
So-
I mean, it's like that. It just is bullshit statements. I mean, you can write that in there because she fell on her job. She should have asked for more information. You tell me that you get a body in Emmy's office and it says rule out suicide. What is it going to be? What are they going to look at? They're going to have blinders on, and that's what they're going to look at. Her injuries were below her hyoid bone, so it's not going to be broken. And she didn't have any fingernail marks because, not always. We said, Detective Jones, did he have injuries? He goes, oh no, I took pictures of him. He doesn't have injuries. There's not one picture of Brian Espana in any of that stuff.
So where's the pictures to prove that?
Because I was like, she scratch Brian? Did she fight Brian? And he said, oh no, I took pictures of him. I can prove it. And
I
that's
understand where you developed the speculation, but
what speculation? That's a lie in his report.
no. But I'm saying, does that make it a homicide?
No, it doesn't make sense.
And so, as I look at it, that's all all I look at it as, because
we're asking and looking at. There's a lot of inconclusive evidence. There's a lot of fabrication, and we got proof of all of it. That things that Detective Jones stated he did or did not do.
Who he interviewed and what he asked.
There's a lot of it.
Explain to me how Chief Benny, what was his take on it with y'all? Because I work out with Chief Benny every day, but I haven't talked with him because
Sure.
I didn't want it to kind
We-
of persuade my thought process as I looked at this.
I'm sure, talked to Tom White about it. We talked to Chief Benny. My points were like her blood alcohol was 384. I mean, physically possible. I mean, I would be dead, of course. She's an alcoholic, but 384 is still pretty high. And he said, I've pulled people over for a 384. I don't know if I believe that or not, but and he just said, based on her past history of depression and mental illness. Mental illness people get murdered. I mean,
I'll tell you why I asked about Chief Benny is because of his background.
I understand that. That's why we met with him.
His background is much better than mine.
Sure.
So I look at it, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't talk to him about it, because I didn't want to say, okay, well, if Chief Benny says it, well, that's what I'm going to go on, right? But I wanted to have my own thought process going in here, and I have to narrow that scope down somewhat to say, okay, my scope is, can I call this a homicide? Now, I don't have any overwhelming evidence to come back and say, okay, I'm calling it a homicide. It was ruled as suicide, and just to be completely honest with you, an MA's office coming back and saying, this is a suicide, that's a big hurdle.
Let's
and
go.
I'm not- and I'm not just-
common. It's very common, actually.
Well, but I'm not.
If you didn't, let me just ask. If you didn't have the ME to rule on it, take out what the ME said.
Mhm.
Let's pretend we didn't get an ME ruling at all.
Because they didn't want to order a suicide.
Hang on.
Okay.
And you haven't, if you've read the history, and I'm not sure how much history you know of it. I mean, there's statements of domestic abuse from this guy already. He's already been arrested for it against her. He's had history before of domestic abuse against other females. He had a warrant against him already. I'd already met with a police officer and let him know the domestic violence going on there. And that's why your detective was sent there. That's why he was sent
Officer
there.
Boyle knew us.
Officer Boyle knew us. We worked out together before. He knew the history already. He requested him to see him because of that. There are statements made from Amanda to other people that made statements to us and other statements to other people before we knew what had happened. That Amanda,
3 days later.
3 days later, that he holds me down and chokes me out often. He already told me that if I wasn't gone by X time,
7 o'clock.
he was going to choke me to death.
5:20, she was on the phone with her friend for a ride.
At 5:20.
5:20.
Making plans to leave. A bag packed downstairs. Clothes packed upstairs. What does your history and your knowledge know of that? Does that tell you someone's going to commit suicide or they're trying to leave?
So at 5:20, she talks to somebody, and at 6 o'clock, she decides to hang herself?
Well, and at the same time...
Again, you cannot... I'm asking you right now to look at it without the ME's ruling, because we know that she didn't get the information to make
a fair
ruling. She was given information to rule a suicide. So, I mean, with that information, I mean, how do you look at it?
But also to add into that, I mean,
Sure.
we had also responded for her mental health multiple times. See what I'm saying? Oh, we got more than once.
Yeah. But
and I know that she
wasn't suicidal.
Had she not made threats of it before?
She had taken a bunch of pills, and Brian told us that she was trying to kill herself. She did not tell me that. That was Brian's words.
Not hers.
I mean, an overdose
and
suicide are two different things.
But that's what I'm saying. That is part of the picture.
And we completely
it's not fair.
We completely agree that, is it possible?
Absolutely.
We agree. It is possible.
We thought it's possible for 3 days. We did. We were like, God,
but with the information that came out that we were unaware of, have you read about Detective Jones's statements and stuff?
I've read through all of his report.
Do you agree that he fabricated some things?
Like what?
What time Brian got home. I mean, he told responding officers he got home at 6 o'clock, and then Jeff Jones changes it to 5 o'clock, but later to be found out to be 7 o'clock. And there's nowhere in the reports from the responding officers did he ever say he got home at 7 o'clock.
Nowhere. Also, what about talking to people in interview?
Well, I'll tell you.
He told 3 officers he got home at 6 o'clock, and the roommate downstairs said he got home at 6 o'clock. That was an hour with Amanda.
So there is conflicting times in there.
What about people he said he talked to that he didn't?
I don't recall as to the people he says he talked to in the report.
Yeah.
And he gave Brian an alibi.
And he never did.
And he gave Brian an alibi that Brian never told him.
Call these people up and ask them yourself if he talked to them. So what we're saying is that there is fabrication in a police report, official report, by Detective Jones that was an employee of the police department. So how can you, and we brought this up then.
We brought it up for the last 2 years.
And there's still nothing done. If I would have done that in a court of law, I'd have been perjury. You would have arrested me.
So are you looking for?
We're looking for several things. Yes.
Okay. So are you looking for it to be concluded as a homicide, or are you looking at it to be Detective Jones held accountable for, like the times? As I look at the times, I don't see those as a fabrication other than just an inconsistency. Because I go out and talk with people often, and the same person telling me different things.
Correct. And if you can
You got
as
3
I put it in a
officers
report,
here.
I will put it down each time.
Sure.
That's exactly. So if they tell me 3, the first time I talk to them, I'm going to put 3. And if they tell me 6 the next time, I'm going to put 6 because I'm not going to put words in their mouth.
Absolutely. And I 100% agree with that. Inconsistencies, I agree with that as inconsistency. But if you have the same officers telling you, and the same people telling you the same time they came home, but he puts in a different time, and it's recorded.
I mean, all your responding officers, they all gave a report that he got home at 6 o'clock.
Your officers did.
Yeah, the other officers that were there, and they
were
talked
there.
with him, and he says, "Hey, this is the time." And
right, and the
Detective
roommate
Jones says,
it too.
"Hey, this time, but I later find it to be this time." So, as far as that's concerned,
I could see, yeah.
Should he have reviewed their reports and went and talked with them once he'd done it? Yes. That would have been the investigative best practice. Did he? Apparently not.
What about the report that he says that he took pictures of Brian Spanian? He looked at his information. He photographed him. He recorded it. And all. Where's that?
So, do y'all want?
Do we want him held accountable? Absolutely, we want him held accountable. Okay. No different than you had treated any other citizen. Right. That's what we're asking. But also, we really want this looked at, because Hispania is out there possibly doing this again as well. So, I mean,
So-
he still hasn't warrant on his arrest.
Could this be a suicide?
Yes, it could.
Okay.
Could it be a homicide?
So when
Let
we
me ask you
start
that.
this,
Could it be a homicide? I agree with you that it could be a suicide.
could it be? Yes. Is it now? As I look at it, is it more reasonable than not that it is a suicide? Yes.
Have you tried people for? Have you had
So-
less evidence and tried things before?
No.
You've never. have?
No.
Really?
No. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, to be honest with you, I mean, it's all over the news. We're working an active homicide right
Mm-hmm.
now, and we sit and had a meeting yesterday, and we still haven't made any arrests, right? And you know, there's video or looking for suspects, people of interest, and all these things. We're not making any arrests because we don't. I mean, you know,
Sure.
that's it. That is your chance. You know what I mean? So let's say this was a homicide, and this is the information we had, and España, we trying, and that's it. That's our chance.
I know. I mean, I get that.
And that's-
I get that.
That's our chance, and that's it.
I guess this is a lot of.
So if this had happened, I mean, these are linear marks. They're horizontal. This one goes down. I don't understand how that is a hanging mark. I don't
The
understand that.
marks are going down the neck, not up the neck.
I don't understand that.
If she was hung.
I just don't understand these marks.
Well, I mean, there's
The medical examiner never saw these marks.
Before she made a ruling, she did not see these.
She was completely healed. She was 7 days healed.
but she did examine the marks. She did cut them open.
7 days after they.
Yeah, and she had bruise in her strap muscles. I mean, that's strangulation, and it was low. Anyway, I know we're not going to convince you, and you're not going to convince me.
Well, and I'm not even trying to convince you that it's a suicide.
No.
What I'm trying to, what I am telling you is that there's not overwhelming evidence to say homicide, here's our suspect, okay? And when we start any investigation, when Detective Jones responded to this, he responded to investigate a death. At the very surface level, okay?
I was
And-
called to assist patrol on a reported suicide attempt.
Right, exactly. He's responding to that. But as you investigate any death, why is he going to, if it's a suicide, we already know that, then what are we doing? We're
Because
spinning our
Boyle
wheels?
Boyle said the suspect,
Exactly.
I mean, he knew
Exactly.
us.
So we got a call of suicide. So we respond because we're going to do a death investigation, not a suicide investigation. Does that make sense to you? So we start there because we want to bring this down as finite as possible and take the right steps. And if we need to turn left or turn right. Again, I haven't talked to Detective Jones about this because he put his stuff on paper, right? And of course he's going to be defensive towards that.
Oh, sure.
And I'm just trying to look at it in, does the evidence speak to us being able to say, okay, this is a homicide? I talked with Ranger Oliver, and then I know that y'all talked with Chief Minnie, and I'm not sitting here saying, hey, it's 100% this or that. But what I'm saying is that there's not evidence to support me saying, okay, we're pushing all this aside to say we're have a homicide investigation. I mean,
So
the
he
DA's
wrote,
office.
Yeah, we met with the DA's office and
Well, we
So
didn't
what did-
meet with. We didn't meet with.
with Britton Brooks.
We met with Britton.
Britain, okay. And what did Britain tell you?
Well, we can't tell the police how to do their job. We can't intrude in their work. We have to trust our police. And I'm like,
Even comments were made about, if I ruffle their feathers, so they feed me in my cases. There's, I know Britain. I'm not trying to. I guess a lot of the frustration, is that we feel very strongly that she was not given a due process, properly investigation from the start. When Jones, wouldn't come back up there to meet us at the hospital the weekend to review stuff. We tried multiple times. He told us flat out that he didn't even know they had a warrant when he when he went there to investigate. He told us that the warrant would not cross over from the sheriff's department to the police department.
And depending on the type of warrant, it may not.
And let's say it didn't.
Depending on it.
So if you run into somebody's name, it's not going to show up?
Officer Boyles knew he had a warrant. Who called him to the scene?
Yeah,
Officer Boyles.
Yeah.
So you think Officer Boyles didn't tell him that he had a warrant for domestic violence? Or, I'm just saying, it was an easy slam dunk, taxpayer
At least
money.
take him to jail.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But also, to them, ruling a suicide is a lot less work and money. That I feel that part of it is that absolutely, I agree with you guys that it very possible could have suicide. Could be. We're not ignorant. It's possible, but we feel as citizens here, and no disrespect for you either one, but if it was your wife or daughter, are you telling me that you would not be as upset as we are if your partner?
No, I don't.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can't tell me that.
I don't question y'all's emotion or feeling at all. And
But the
as
work
to
being
last
done and worked it
administration,
up.
Well, I was a detective under the last administration.
Sure.
And for any faults that there may have been, Chief Henry would not spare an expense at an investigation like this. I do firmly believe that. I know that myself nor he would really spare expense either.
Sure.
It is very easy to go to the city council and say, we need more money because we're investigating this case, any case involving death. And so it shouldn't be less work. I understand your frustration with Detective Jones's work. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and try to defend his work. To be honest with you, I don't.
We don't blame you for it, and we don't blame you for it.
And I understand.
But it
is a representation of our department.
It is, but and that's where we feel like, if it was one of us citizens that lied in reports, did a half-assed job, we'd be accountable. At my job, I've been in the medical field for 22 years. We publicize that stuff. We get together. If we make a mistake,
you learn from it.
We learn from it, but we feel here it gets pushed aside. Not saying you are.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying what it seems like, the presentation. And that's where we feel a little frustrated and upset is that, he falsified things. He lied to us more than once. He said he talked to people he never talked to. We gave him leads that he could have talked to. We had a person from HR where she worked at said that he tried to convince her of what Amanda's bag was she brought to work that day.
No, he told us that he asked her about the bag because we were like, her bag was packed in downstairs. He's like, oh, that was her lunch bag. I'm like, her lunch bag? He goes, I interviewed people that she works with and they said it's her lunch bag. Well, I trotted right over to the HR department and she's like, he didn't ask me about any bags. She walked 10 blocks to work every day. She didn't carry a big old suitcase with her to work every day. So he lied and said that he talked to multiple people she worked with and said that was her lunch bag. Well, that just discounted her being packed and ready. I mean,
it kind of gave him an alibi that says that she went and packed clothes for her in her bag because she didn't have a suitcase. The carry-on bag had her license, her wallet, her Bible, a little bit of her makeup and stuff, like overnight to carry out to the leave.
And there's her clothes bag.
And that's her point.
And this is the bag she carried to work.
None of that was even looked at. He didn't even open it to look in it.
And then he gave Brian an alibi in his report, and he said that Brian left work. He got off of work and hung out with some friends. Brian never said that in his audio statement. I've transcribed it. He said he left work at 5:09. He went to the Valero gas station, used the ATM machine, got on 75, and drove straight home. That would put him home right about 6 o'clock. Yeah. So he gives him an extra stop here. He got off of work and hung out with some friends. He never said that in his statement to Detective Jones.
No.
And I've listened to it. And
so one of the problems with this is, I'll tell you, just from an investigative standpoint, one of the problems with it is that multiple people talked to Brian before we got to that point of him talking to Detective Jones. He spoke with Officer Dutton. He spoke with Officer Aviles. That didn't need to happen. Just to be honest with you, because we need one.
Well, I think it gave Brian more time to think about it.
well, whether it did or didn't, it creates opportunity for this doubt to creep in, okay? And, you talk about learning from your mistakes. That's a mistake. That shouldn't have happened.
Sure.
He should not have been allowed to talk to multiple different officers, because then you get multiple different officers putting 3 different things. We want one story at one time, because then what we can do is we can hold people accountable to the things they say. That's why it's so critical to get one story. There were things in Detective Jones' investigation that fell far short of what I would have considered a best practice for an investigator. Okay, I will admit that, but it doesn't reach the level to label it a homicide right now. One of the things that y'all are running into, speaking with the DA's office, speaking with Chief Minnie, is, and medical examiner's office, you see how many different players there are in this game of criminal justice, okay? We face that also. None of us are medical professionals, so we send them to the ME's office. And then we're at their, we're kind of at their call, right? So we do ours, we send to them, we get back from them, compile it with ours, take that, goes to the DA's office. So that's typically how we would want it to go. Though they have a tough time wanting to bite off somebody else's investigation. I believe that. Okay, that's why they say, "Oh well, they don't want to make us mad." You're probably talking. I mean, we don't have any territorial ground here. Okay, but it's like with Britain, it's we're not going to not send him a case because he's looking at something. You know what I mean?
I know. It was just
and
2 guys talking.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I mean, we like Britain, and I think he knows us in that. We want to do right by everybody, and I truly believe we do provide a service. Okay, we provide a law enforcement service for the citizens. Taxpayers' money, right? You want that to be done. We should be the law enforcement professionals. We should be the experts at what we do. We're working to get there. We fell short before. This could very well be an example of that.
And we feel that she fell short of her due process that she deserved because she was, very poverty. She was an alcoholic, and people.
She had a domestic. I mean, she did have a history
people,
of.
Even I sometimes wrongly, judge people just the way they look, and don't get the service that they deserve. And that's what we're fighting for: is that she didn't get the service that she deserves, whether she was suicide or not.
I mean, if
I don't know how to fix that. And that's where, at the end of the road, we're trying to fix whether. I don't know. But
And I don't know exactly that there is a fix for that. Just to be, completely honest, that I don't really know that we can ever convince you that, hey, we did enough. You know what I mean? And far be it for me to really try to sit here and do that, other than just be honest with you and say, hey, I've reviewed it and talked with a couple other people, and there were some people that I intentionally did not talk to. And that I try to bring it down to a certain scope, okay? And when I try to bring that in and narrow it in and define that, I mean, I get to that fence of homicide or suicide. And I take what information we do got without me personally going back and redoing an entire investigation and saying, okay, which one do we reasonably say this is? At the end of the day, that's where I had to come, that I can't sit here and say with confidence, this is a homicide and we need to go about this, okay?
I mean, I feel like his intentions from the beginning was to be a suicide because on Sunday we thought we were going to lose her because, her brain had swollen so much that her breathing had shut down. And so we worked hard to get the JP on the phone to talk to him because that's the only person that could approve an autopsy. We get him on the phone like at 9 o'clock at night, and he's talking to the attending doctor, and he's like, oh, we're not doing an autopsy because of her past history. And the doctor's like, hey, no, I mean, that's not fair, because there's some things here that don't make sense to this family. And she's, I get on the phone, I talk to him, he's like, no, I'm sorry, we're not doing an autopsy because of her history. Well, where did he get that information from Thursday to Sunday? Because none of this domestic violence stuff had coming up until Tuesday. So, I mean, I feel like Jeff Jones had his mind set that night that this was a suicide.
Well, I don't know what they're...
And so I had to pull the laws and say she's entitled to an autopsy because, she was an unwitnessed death. I mean, I don't care if it's suicide, homicide. She's entitled to one by the state, so we had to go through the DA's office and get approval. And
So, and that's part of the deal. There are so many conversations that go on during anything like this, during any investigation.
If I hadn't have been her advocate, she wouldn't have got an autopsy. She wouldn't have got one.
No, and that's not, in the reality of it, that's not a police department call. So I know he and I both have been in situations where we have had to fight the JP to get an autopsy.
But how'd the JP know about her past medical history if he just got a phone call in the middle of the night saying, she's going to die, we need to know where to send her body?
Detective Jones may very well have told him about that.
Yeah.
But
I know.
It's part of the imperfection of the system. And that's not an excuse, nor does it make it any better. But I have sat there uncomfortable with a death and talked to the JP and said, no, we're not going to do that. No, I need it. I don't see this the way you see it. Well, my call. Not good enough for me. And I have gone to the DA's office and fought for that. I get it. And y'all did that work that quite possibly Detective Jones should have done himself. And again, it can't make it right or feel like our service to you was what it should have been. But that she received the investigation she should have received. Whether it ended up in a homicide or a suicide, either way. That it was something that, like you said, really fit what needed to be done. So again, I'm not trying to convince you that it's a suicide. I'm just letting you know that you review everything. There's nothing, again, overwhelming. And I don't want to try to put a sports reference on it, but it's like football. I mean, you get a call to overturn it, you need overwhelming evidence to say that, okay, it's this other thing.
This is somebody's life. It's
You're
not
absolutely right.
Football.
No, it's not. It's
I know,
not.
but...
And I'm not, but you understand how we have to rely on the ME's office, and
yeah, I do.
I mean, whether you even agree with the ME's office or even their portion of it,
Mm-hmm.
you won't find in Grayson County. You will not find us going into any homicide or murder without the ME's office being a critical portion of that testimony. It does not happen. The DA's office, we rely on it too much. We don't have our own local, and we don't have a coroner. So we do suffer in Grayson County from not having that avenue. I don't know that I'd want a coroner. They're not even a medical professional, right? So at least we send them down, and we even take the extra step of sending them down to Dallas because of the number of ME professionals that they have. There's a reason that she went to Dallas and not Collin County. I don't know Collin County's ME's office. I don't have anything against them, but I know they only got 2. And Dallas has 10, 15.
I guess I have to research the standard protocol to rule out, homicide versus suicide, because I would just think that some information should have went with her, and that would have been a huge difference in the outcome.
Well, there's not
with the ME's office.
There's no standard protocol. I mean, that's part of the task in your investigation is that you don't have an ABC. You're trying to look at the whole picture and not do kind of what you said earlier, putting on blinders. You're trying to look at the whole thing as a whole, start to finish. How far back do you go to start? How far back do you go to finish? Or how far forward, right? What could have been? What would have been? So, again, I'm not trying to convince you that it's one way or the other, but
I guess I just need answers on why her injuries go down and not.
That's
and they're horizontal. They're not. I mean, they're.
It's hard to imagine. We know that people have seen him choke her out from behind, sit on her hands, things like that. We know that. And this is the perfect thing where it goes back and nothing's going up. You look at it, nothing, part of the literature is going up at all as a hanging. And one literature is going down. So that's where
hangings can be grotesque in nature.
Sure.
Oh, I've looked at lots of pictures.
And so, what a person's body starts to do at that moment can be gruesome and exaggerated, and right. And so, not being an expert on it, I would stop short of saying that I make any conclusion from just looking at this. Just because
she
of
was
the
still
nature
warm.
of it.
Her heart was still having electrical activity, so she hadn't been down very long. She was still warm to the touch, and
different things are perceived different ways.
I know.
I think Detective Dean, Lieutenant Dean says, "Hey, look, this guy he tried to resuscitate her." So people look at it different, and I'm not saying that is icing on the cake, right?
Well, if he even did it, that's his word, and he got to walk away that night and never be seen again. He got in his car and left.
That's what I'm saying, though, as people taking the information in, and what do they see that as? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I look at that as one way or the other. Lieutenant Dean said, I talked to him, he says, "Hey, look, he even tried to do this."
Yeah, he also tried to say
that was from CPR that night.
CPR, the bruise, that was the Mother's Day gift she got.
That was the ICU nurse that said, he said that was from CPR. That's an old bruise. And I said, yeah, that was Mother's Day. That was 5 days before he punched her with his fist in the chest. It's fist print. So, he also said, he's a very evil man.
Well,
he threatened to kill her if she left. He threatened to kill her if she didn't come back. He's going to kill her whole family. And she was terrified for her life.
I know that it isn't closure. It doesn't sell you one way or the other, and I'm not trying to sell you at all. Okay, I understand this is your sister's life, and that you're fighting to find some answers here. And
so, what is your police protocol for domestic violence calls? If you've got, if somebody, as Boyle told Detective Jones, there's a domestic violence situation, is it not automatically looked at to rule out a homicide? If there is domestic violence involved?
So, again, any death is death, okay? Short of ever. You can even have a note. Somebody else could have wrote that note. Okay. So you have to have a suspicious mind on any death. That is the protocol, is suspicion. It should be entered into as suspicious. Now, the state law tells us how we're going to handle most domestic violence situations. In that, if you have probable cause to believe that it happened, which means you have evidence that can lead you that way, that you make an arrest, even if it ends up in a bruise. Okay?
Right.
If an officer would have responded to that and she'd have had red marks on her chest, he'd have gone to jail that night.
But he just
said,
he just said that he found her hanging. With the history, I would just be like, hey, we need to take you in for questioning or something, He just was treated like a victim.
No,
I'm
not saying that Detective Jones's practices were best. I I can't sit here and defend
I know.
necessarily all of his investigation. Some of the things in his investigation are absolutely the way I'd have done it. Some of the things in it are a little different. However, I know that I can walk down that CID hallway, and every case that those guys are doing, I'd probably be a little bit different than I'd have done, and some of them would be the same. I really have to check myself a lot of times when I'm trying to gauge people's investigations, because I may not have done it that way. Doesn't make it the wrong way. There probably is a better way, you know. So it's tough when during something where there's not
It's easy to coach from the sidelines.
and there is not a set. You will do A, B, C, D, and E. Because oftentimes we do have people lie to us, right? And so we can't say you're going to take a statement from this person this one time, because then they lie and you don't get the information. You know,
Right.
It has to be somewhat ambiguous.
And I begged him. I was like, "Can you just question him again?" I begged him, you know, before he's going to catch on that we're going to think something's going on.
Okay.
And he walked away. I mean, he just got in his car and walked
He
away.
left.
He's gone.
Then 2 days afterwards.
He left everything he owned in that apartment. The neighbor saw him get in his car with an envelope and drove off, and he just left. And I'm like, he's been arrested 10 times in Grayson County over the last 10 years, and he's not been scared before, you know.
Why would he leave now?
I mean, why would he just
He had a warrant on his arrest. He'd been arrested 10 times. He never left before.
escape
So
custody?
why did he leave now?
Well, and I understand.
I mean, he left his license. He left all his pictures. He left his computer, his clothes. We have it all.
False immigration papers.
False immigration
and he was
papers.
like, I'm not immigration.
And
What am I
that was part
supposed to
of
do
the
about it?
thing as well, is that, you know, he's been in trouble with Grayson. He wasn't afraid. No offense to you guys. He wasn't afraid of the police department. But why is he afraid now? Why did he leave within 2 to 3 days after having been seen? If he
Just
was
all these
innocent,
circumstances, just like
to us, it makes
would
it seem like
warrant
something should be more
something's not
investigated,
right.
or a possible homicide with. I mean, again, we're not police officers. Don't pretend to be. Yes, we've done a ton of research, or Kimberly has, but a lot of circumstantial evidence.
who knew if he came back the second time and got interviewed if he would have stumbled over his words, been like,
I mean, but wouldn't you at least try to interview him a second time? I mean,
Again,
with
it's
an arrest for domestic abuse, 10 arrests on his record, a warrant for his arrest. He wasn't interviewed. He wasn't photographed. Nothing. I mean,
I
is
understand
that normal?
the circumstantial concern.
But I mean, how can? Yeah, I'd like to hang.
he's the
Jim
only
myself,
person that
you know,
said
for some of
suicide.
this.
Everybody else said, you know, I have to be out of here by 7 or he's going to kill me. There's
She told 3 people.
three
She
people
called
that-
me that day at 10 a.m. getting phone numbers, looking for rides. I didn't know she was trying to leave. She didn't tell me that. But phone numbers, and the phone numbers I gave her was in her purse. That was her lunch bag, supposedly.
her suitcase. And the neighbor at 520 on the phone, she was hearing her talk. She's like, I've got to be out of here by 7. He's going to kill me. I have to be out of here. He got home at 6, and at 7:14, he calls 911. It's like,
Did y'all ever talk to Brian after?
I did. I let him come to the hospital on Saturday, and I audio taped him, and he gave me this big theatric presentation about how he got home from work, and he went in the closet, and he took his shirt off because it was so hot, and he put it in the hamper, and he went and he looked for Amanda, and he hollered for her. The closet was almost empty. I mean, that
He
whole
said
side.
He went in the closet to look for her. There's
And
no
then-
way you could not have seen her.
And then
in the
he
closet.
said that I went back, and he's like, in the back of the closet, in the very far corner, I saw her feet. She was sitting on her knees. I thought she was praying. And I was like, okay, you know. He goes, babe, what's wrong? He said, I pulled the clothes back, and she was hanging. She's sitting on her knees praying. He said, I thought she was praying. She's sitting on her knees. And, you know, I've got it all. I mean, and this closet does not have that much stuff hanging in it
That you could not have seen her
that
from
you
the
couldn't
doorway.
have seen her from the first
We
time.
videotaped from the doorway and just kind of glanced through, and you could see. when you
And there's
walked
the
in door.
clothes hamper he said he used to put his clothes in. Well, it's right there next to the cord.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an audio of all that, and he got on his knees, and he was just doing all this theatrics, and it was just made me sick. I mean,
Did you talk to him ever again after that?
And we texted back and forth, and I just kept saying she's doing great because I didn't want him to get scared that she was going to die. And then I was like, she's really doing good. And then his phone got turned off, which it was paid on the Thursday that she died. That he went to AT&T, paid his phone bill that day, so he just had it cut off because he's leaving. He's gone. And so we texted back and forth, and then it was turned off.
Phone shut off. Different number somehow, I guess.
Yeah, he disappeared. So for him to go in and tell me he went in there and changed clothes, he went around, looked in because it's only one room. I don't know if you saw it. It's just one room with a closet and a bathroom.
It's not as big as this room here.
And I mean, there's hardly anything hanging there that she could have been hidden behind anyway. And then he tells me he breaks the cord with his bare hands. I mean, how do you break an electrical cord with your bare hands?
He's pretty big. I don't know if you've met him, but he's about Kimberly's size and probably a little less weight than her. So, I mean, I know we're not.
I mean, if he can break it, I'm pretty sure her body weight that caused these injuries would have broke it before he could have pulled it apart.
Well, and that's part of it. I mean, so you got somebody that's going to argue her body weight had stretched it, the integrity of it was compromised, and his adrenaline was running, and boom, he tears it because he cares that much. So that's the counter argument, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't even tied around
And
her neck.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that that's the case, but as we look at it, we have to try to negate that all the time. So we constantly fight that, not only with the defense attorney, but as we go over to the DA's office, they are shooting holes in a ton of things. I mean, Chief Jeffcoat's got some major investigations going on right now that I know he wants to get wrapped up because it keeps him up at night.
Yeah.
And then
if he was ever picked up again, would there be a chance that they would put forth effort to interrogate him and try to, play back that, hey, you left
Happened
town?
that night.
definitely an opportunity to talk to him. Now, interrogating, we'd see, because that the way that the nature of interrogations, it's almost like interrogations it's a game.
Yeah, that's what I mean. A
And
game with him, thinking that we're on to him,
It
and see if it's still.
depends on where the interview went, right? Because an interview has to open the door for an interrogation. It really does.
Sure. No, I understand.
Otherwise you walk into a losing game. So you gotta really do that. And is there the opportunity for that? Absolutely. I mean, we're not saying that if we come across Brian and Espinosa that we're just gonna forget about this.
Is there any flags out there in the system that if he got picked up, that would alert whoever picked him up to notify the SPD? I mean, to where we could at least have that opportunity?
On a broad scope outside of Sherman Police Department, no. So
I mean, how do y'all, if you're right down the road and you pick up a guy on the side of the road, you run his license, does not warrants from other states or stuff like that pick up?
They do.
So if he still has that warrant on his arrest, would that not?
We wouldn't know to question about this.
Right. Right.
And it depends on the level of warrant, or if there's an extradition.
Right.
Or think of it like a cake. I mean, there's different layers to it.
Yeah.
So the warrant system, the communication system between agencies, and it's a flaw in law enforcement in the United States, right?
It's just not just law. Yeah.
The fact that Grayson County can have warrants and us not know about them, which is that is true. And Sergeant Boyle should have, maybe did tell
Yeah, I'm not saying he
Jones.
did or he didn't. Officer
Yeah.
Boyle was very professional. He wouldn't talk. He wouldn't discuss. He just said, you need
Yeah.
to come. And he wouldn't give you anything.
But he did call us on the phone
No,
once
that's what
we
I'm
were
saying.
2 hours
He
away.
did call and say, give us a courtesy call and say, you need to go to the hospital. He wouldn't elaborate before, after, and I tried. And he wouldn't.
And
He's a good
Sergeant
man.
Boyle he's a good sergeant, and he's a good officer and a good man, and he definitely was trying to do the right thing, and I think he did.
Yeah, I did too.
And I trust his report more than I do Jeff Jones, about the time that he came home. And what is the protocol for illegal immigration? I mean, why is he still here this long and been picked up that many times and arrested?
So we, Senate Bill 2 is just coming that would allow us to ask a person's immigration status. That really has never hindered us before. How most agencies operate within the United States is anybody illegal that has committed something violent or has shown a need to get a hold put on them, we can notify the jail. We get in touch with immigration, and they can put a hold on them. If they haven't done something violent or some large narcotics activity, typically immigration would just move on.
What about in his case?
I don't know, to be honest with you. With Trump in office, immigration is kind of stepping up their game a little bit, so I really don't know how they would act. But anything beyond the jail is kind of really out of our hands. It becomes theirs and immigration after that. We really don't do much with immigration outside of just Homeland Security as a whole, and that's more in the line of computer crimes. So really doesn't do much with immigration as it relates to people being here. Our authorities is extremely limited on that. We are, immigration is federal law, and we can only enforce up to state. So we lose a lot of authority when it gets there.
I guess, is there like a crime lab here, like the fingerprints we asked to be fingerprinted was the box cutter, and Detective Jeff Jones personally dusted it for fingerprints and didn't find anything. Is that protocol for a detective to go and do his own fingerprinting? Like, especially if he's trying to make it fit a certain,
So it is. We would have no problem with that. How they go about that, whether they do it with fuming or dust, would be an investigative decision of theirs. You could send it to the state crime lab. There's a possibility that they would deny it because of offense. They would not do anything until you had a court date. So we would have to already have a homicide case put together, have a court date set to go to trial, and then they would do it.
Is there records that show that he actually did that?
I have not. I haven't
No,
looked to
but
that.
would there typically be records that prove that if you dusted something, would you not have to log it in the
Only
results?
in your report.
Yeah, only your report, and if you are able to lift a print, then you would lift that and put it in evidence, but if you don't find any type of evidence, you're not going to.
You just documented it.
Document your report. That you have done. And if you fume it, you could even take pictures of it, and you're really not going to be able to tell that you had done anything, because the fuming is not going to adhere to anything unless you've got those prints. Yeah.
I think that, before she even died and we met with him on that Tuesday, he said there's nothing here that indicates homicide. And that was his mind before she even died. And he told us that.
Well,
And I just felt like he wanted that to be what it was. And so that's my heart.
I don't want y'all to sit here and think we're trying to defend Detective Jones to the end of the world. Because if any of our detectives messes up, he'll be the first one to fall on the carpet. And that's the reason why he's where he is. And we want this police department to be an example of professionalism. And I'll be the first to tell you, in times past, we haven't been. And so, again, there's some lessons to be learned here on our end for sure. But
there's nothing here that you would consider reopening it, and there's nothing here.
like I said, if we were to come across Brian again, absolutely, we'd talk with him.
I could probably find him.
Be, if he's got a warrant, he'd be. I mean, we would arrest him on it. As I look at the circumstantial things, they are that because they can. There is a pretty quick rebuttal to them. Even the cord and breaking them with his hand. I mean, it doesn't take long, and you've got a defense, right? So you got to break through all those things.
I would hope a jury would say that's bullshit too.
I mean, you would hope. But
I would hope that a jury would look at this and say
thing.
that's not hanging marks. That's what I would hope.
That's what defense attorneys are paid for, and So you got to try to forecast some of that. You know, one of the marks of a good detective is being able to forecast some of those things and negate them. But I think one of the things, one of y'all's frustrations is there was no forecasting. Y'all believe a decision was already made.
And because he falsified his report, he made it fit the crime. He made it fit his outcome because of his false.
Yeah.
And that just covered his ass.
We'll look at the integrity of the report, but you know, it doesn't. Again, it's just nothing that says, okay, hey, let's start over.
Okay.
So, sounds like empty words. Should something come up, we'll be in touch. I mean, Brian's name is it's on our list. So, I mean.
Well, I do intend to go to. I mean, I'm not. I know. I am very passionate about this, and you know, I've lost a mother and a sister to domestic violence homicide, and I would have never doubted that she could have committed suicide. And for 3 days, I was like, I wish I'd have done more for her, because I did have her committed to the TMC. I'm the one that had her picked up. I'm the one that did it because I was worried about her. She never thought she had a problem. So for 3 days, I warred with what I could have done different. Mm-hmm. Friends started calling saying I was going to come get her. I was waiting for her to call me when Brian get home because he was going to kill her if she wasn't out. That changed everything. That was a game changer. Dustin said she had to be out by 7. He was going to kill her. The neighbor said that. That was a game changer for me Saturday. Total game changer. I'm like, there's a threat of murder within 30 minutes of him being home. He was with her for an hour. I'm not convinced that she hid in the back of the closet behind the clothes and he didn't see her when he went in there twice. This is...
That's what we're hoping, that, you know, that type of information, that, you know, you had witnesses making statements that she was fearing for her life, and made statements before, earlier in the day, that I had to be out by a certain time, and then at that time she dies.
I think he got home at 6. They sat around and they drank and they argued and they fought, and I'm pretty sure at 7 he said, "Bitch, I told you to be out by 7." And I think he strangled her. He hung her up, went got the neighbor, brought him up to see it, cut her down, called 911. I really think that's what happened, because
and that's where, you know, we didn't make
I think she was very, very drunk, but at 5:30 she was not that drunk. She walked across the street. She used the telephone. She could tell she'd been drinking, but you know, she was more scared than, there was nothing like desperation. But I mean, he was home in 30 minutes. I just cannot believe that she left there with her arranged ride, with her bags packed, and him being home at 6 o'clock, and her being picked up at 7:15. That he could not have been at least looked at as a suspect and looked at. That's where my heart is. That's where I feel in my gut. And I knew my sister. I mean, she was crazy. I mean, she was. But she loved her boys. She would have left them a note. She loved her boys so much. When I talked to her that morning, she said, "Tell Jordan I love him. I'll call him later tonight," because she was trying to get hold of Amber to come get her. And Amber was her friend since they were high school.
Well, I don't want y'all to think that this is any indictment on her character by us. No. I never knew her.
She would say she's crazy. I mean, after my sister and mom were murdered, I mean, she struggled. We lost her brother in 2007 from cancer, and our dad in 2003. I mean, it was just me and her. And I did everything in my whole life to help her and protect her. And she was trying to get away. I wish she would have called me. But she's afraid I was going to lock her up in the loony bin. I mean, that's what she told me. Every time we'd go pick her up when he's beating her, she said he would tell her, "She's going to lock you up." So she wouldn't leave. And I don't know. That's my heart, and I just thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
And I appreciate y'all and your cooperation with this. I know it doesn't in the way that you like to see it, but coming in and us being able to have a conversation about it and talk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if you don't either agree, you may understand, not agree, but to be civil about it and to be understanding, I do appreciate that. Not everybody we talk to is like that, and so we do. I do sincerely appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Y'all be done. That's it. Thank you.
That's the one that signed off on Detective John. The supervisor that signed off on his report. The whole time I was sitting there going, "You're not gonna."
I wish I known that.
Thank you so much for listening. In part 7, I will break down and analyze the meeting. I'll go over what Chief Flores and Assistant Chief Jeffcoat have said, which might just violate a few laws and procedures. I also want to dive into the recreation of the scene. If you've been feeling angry during parts 1 through 6, just wait until you hear how this all ends. As I said before, this is only how it ends for now. This is far from over, even when the series is. Stay tuned for part 7 on Monday. Until then, stay safe and take care.